The legendary Byzantine general Belisarius had come and gone. The Ostrogothic king, Attila, had been defeated and killed. The Franks, under their Merovingian kings, had carved out a massive and powerful kingdom in what was once Roman Gaul. The Frankish tide was unstoppable. They brushed aside what little resistance they met and began a devastating march down the Italian peninsula. The army split into two columns. One, under Butulinus, marched down the western coast, through Tuscany and Campania, leaving a trail of destruction. The other, led by Volturnus, took the eastern coast along the Adriatic. The few remaining Gothic holdouts joined them, hoping for one last chance at victory. Italy, which had just begun to breathe a sigh of relief, was once again plunged into war and chaos. Now, who was there to stop them? The man in charge of the Byzantine forces in Italy was a 73-year-old eunuch named Narses. Don't let his age or his status fool you. Narses was one of the most brilliant and ruthless commanders of his time. He was a master of logistics, strategy, and diplomacy. He had been the one to finally defeat Attila and Teia, bringing the Gothic War to its climax. But even for Narses, this was a crisis. His army, exhausted from 20 years of war, was small, probably numbering no more than 18,000 men. He eventually set up a fortified camp near Capua, on the banks of the Volturnus River. He built a strong defensive position using wagons and the natural terrain. He believed Narses wouldn't dare to attack him in his stronghold. He was wrong. In the autumn of 554, Narses decided it was time to strike. He marched his army south and found Butulinus's camp. He saw that the Franks had built a solid defense, but they had made one critical mistake. They had failed to properly secure the bridge over the Volturnus, which was their main supply line. Narses dispatched a trusted Armenian officer named Shanaranges with a cavalry force to seize it. Shanaranges was initially driven back, but he didn't give up. Under the cover of darkness, he used ropes to scale the bridge tower, overpowered the small Frankish garrison, and captured the bridge. Butulinus's army was now cut off. The Franks were trapped, but they were not cowards. They were renowned for their ferocity in battle. Their primary tactic was to form a massive, dense infantry wedge and simply charge, overwhelming their enemies with sheer force and aggression. The next morning, they formed up for battle. The historian Agathias, our main source for this battle, describes their formation as a hogshead, a deep column of infantry, bristling with spears and axes designed to punch right through the enemy's center. They were confident that Narcissus' thin line couldn't possibly withstand their charge. Narcissus, however, was a student of classical tactics. He wasn't going to play their game. He knew his infantry couldn't stop the Frankish charge head-on. So, he devised a brilliant plan, one that would have made Hannibal or Scipio Africanus proud. He deployed his army in a crescent formation, a tactic reminiscent of the Battle of Cannae. He placed his heavy infantry in the center, but he commanded them to do something unusual, not to advance, but to slowly give ground when the Franks charged. He essentially wanted his center to act as a hinge. The real killing power of his army was on the wings. He placed his best troops, the heavily armored cavalry, on both flanks, but he kept them slightly pulled back and hidden. Crucially, a significant portion of this cavalry was composed of horse archers. The battle began. The entire Frankish army, chanting their war cries, charged forward as one massive block. They crashed into the Byzantine center. Just as Narcissus had ordered, the Roman infantry held for a moment and then began a slow, orderly withdrawal. The Franks, smelling victory, surged forward, pressing deeper and deeper into the sagging Roman line. They were so focused on breaking the center that they didn't notice what was happening on their flanks. As the Frankish wedge pushed into the crescent, Narcissus gave the signal. His cavalry, which had been waiting patiently, swung forward like the closing doors. Suddenly, the Franks found themselves not breaking the Roman line, but being enveloped by it. From both sides, a storm of arrows rained down on their exposed and unshielded flanks. The horse archers rode in, fired, and wheeled away, a classic Parthian shot tactic that the Franks had no answer for. The Frankish wedge, once a symbol of strength, became a death trap. Packed so tightly together, they couldn't maneuver or even effectively defend themselves from the arrows coming from the sides and rear. Confusion turned to panic. The charge lost its momentum and ground to a halt. The men in the back couldn't see what was happening, pushing forward into the men at the front, who were being slaughtered. The Roman infantry in the center, having absorbed the initial shock, now stood firm and pushed back. Trapped, surrounded, and decimated by arrows, the Frankish army completely collapsed. Agathias claims that almost the entire Frankish army was annihilated, with Butulinus himself among the dead. Byzantine losses, in contrast, were minimal. The Battle of Volturnus was a tactical masterpiece. It was a stunning victory for Narcissus and Eastern Roman Empire.